Do you ever open your phone and think, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? My name is Belle, and I talk about things I find interesting on the internet with Gooby. Please apologize. Apologize. Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. He has a pink nose, so that's his apology. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, bye. My name is Belle. I'm a commentary YouTuber and video essayist, and today we're going to be talking about a trend on TikTok that I've been seeing, and it is virtual makeovers. At first glance, this seems innocent enough, but I promise it's not. I think this started when mostly young women started posting selfies and asking their audience, how can I be prettier, or help me glow up, hoping to get some advice on how to do their makeup and feel more confident. Then, like bloodthirsty vultures with Amazon storefronts, TikTok grifters entered the chat.
I never thought it was pretty. I got you, girl. Since you asked for brutal honesty, I'm gonna give it to you. You look just like Effie from Skins, so I think her aesthetic would look great on you. To start, I'm dyeing your hair to be a darker, rich brown. This really suits you as it makes your facial features stand out. Now, I'm just going in with concealer to cover your acne, as well as a skin tint to add a healthy glow. I also use bronzer to contour your cheeks and make your face more defined. For your acne, I'd recommend going on Tretinoin. I did this for my acne and it went away completely. Next, I'm just slightly shaping your brows and filling them in for a cleaner look. Now, I'm using mascara to really draw attention to your eyes, as well as some concealer in your inner corner. This made a crazy difference as your eyes are already pretty, they just needed more emphasis. Now, I'm using contour and some highlight to make your nose look smaller and more lifted. Lastly, I'm just using a lip liner and a slight pink lip tint to make your lips more apparent. Here's the end result. Look at that difference.
If you want to look like don't trust yourself and get these useless comments, get a private makeover from me in bio.
Soon there were whole accounts dedicated to giving virtual makeovers and advice to insecure young women for an unrestricted audience to see. As for now, I think the two main offenders are Caroline79 and TheGlowUpsGals, but in my research for this video, I saw many smaller accounts start popping up, so hopefully we can stop this trend before it morphs into even more commonplace. And in these videos, most of the time, the young women did ask for help, but I'd argue when you're not quite confident, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and asking a stranger to comment on your looks for the whole internet to see. Also, sometimes the women didn't ask at all, which I'll get into later on. So in this video, we're going to explore the many different ways people have become obsessed with changing their appearance, how these methods are often based on pseudoscience or misinformation, and the root causes of why this continues to persist in every single generation. Let's start with Caroline79, who I think is the first account to really popularize this on TikTok because the Glow Up Gals came after. And please don't send any hate to any of these creators. That is absolutely not the aim of this video. These are just two accounts that I'm using as examples of a bigger phenomenon, kind of like a symptom but not the cause. And these two accounts are a little bit different in nature, so let's get into it. Basically, Caroline uses color analysis to find colors that best suit you individually and gives you a makeover based on her findings. She has a Gmail account listed in her bio where you can email her for a public makeover, which is just free advertising for her bullshit services, or you can pay her $15 for a private makeover that includes one edited photo of you featuring whatever hair and makeup Caroline thinks is best, and one glow-up book to, quote, start your journey towards a more confident you. So I think she's referring to this free, healthy lifestyle book on her page, which features recipes to replace your regular comfort food with something, quote, more healthy. And all of these recipes are under 450 calories, some being under 300 calories, which is just not enough for a full meal. Also, being hungry after eating something I made 3 weeks earlier and then defrosted will not bring me comfort like ordering a pizza. Like, just let's be so for real. She does say these recipes are only intended for, quote, tough times and to enjoy your regular meals otherwise, but I can't think of a reason why these recipes in particular are more healthy than others other than the fact that they're just low in calories. In this way, she's perpetuating the idea that lower calories somehow equals more healthy, thus encouraging calorie restriction, and that is just not really safe to be preaching to an already vulnerable audience. I'm gonna get into this more later, but skinny does not always equal healthy, and being skinnier does not make you more attractive. That's just some early 2000s heroin chic bullshit. I'm planting the seed into the minds of young women who are already self-conscious enough to ask unqualified strangers on the internet for advice on how to look prettier. It's just reinforcing negative thought patterns when it comes to eating, which can lead people down a very rough path. To cover her butt, Caroline does say in this book that she's not a health professional, but I'm arguing that she's actually not a professional at anything. Everything on her page you can do yourself, and she'll help by charging you $5 for a DIY template to determine your own color analysis. But if you're not feeling confident enough to do your own color analysis, you can pay a mere $50 for a full consultation where Caroline will do the color analysis for you. Okay, side note, this is editing Isabel. I didn't notice this when I was writing my script, but what the actual fuck does she mean by possible surgery procedures and face analysis if requested? Is she really saying she's gonna recommend surgery? And if so, should I call the police? Like, what the hell? See, there's one big problem with this, and that's that color analysis is not real. It was literally made up by some dude. Basically, this artist named Johannes Eaton wrote a book where he decided all women fall into one of 4 color categories based on the 4 seasons. Now, how did he determine this, you may be asking? And the answer is through his own subjective observation. Literally no facts, just vibes. Since then, many other self-described experts have adapted this theory into their own, none of which have actual scientific research and all of which disagree on the basic principles, and all of which were made for white women specifically. Shocker, I know. Only in very recent years have these so-called color analysis experts started to incorporate women of color into this conversation, which does not surprise me and really shouldn't surprise you. If you want to learn more about this topic, I suggest checking out these 2 videos, which will be linked in the description below. But for now, all you need to know is that this seasonal color analysis that Caroline is using is not based on any real evidence, and it's completely subjective to what she sees fit. Now, young women in the comment section are practically begging Caroline and other experts for advice on how they can level up with color analysis, and they're actually dishing out real money to do this. Again, I sincerely don't think this account is malicious. She's actually nice to the people who she's reviewing, often emphasizing this person's natural beauty, and she seems to do this with their full consent. But we can't ignore the fact that she's taking a page out of any beauty brand's playbook and using the insecurities of young women to make a quick and easy buck. She's also encouraging young women to stick to certain colors that suit them best, which is just going to lead to more shopping and thus more waste. And just to reiterate, color analysis is not based in fact, so they're also being incredibly dishonest in this process while reinforcing patriarchal beauty standards onto impressionable women. It also always seems to be about making the women look, quote, more feminine, which almost always translates to looking more white or having more Eurocentric beauty standards. Which leads me to the Glow Up Gals, who actually does a very poor job of hiding this. So this account reminds me of like when the popular girls in middle school would come up to me and just give me unsolicited beauty advice. They'd be like, you know, you have great eyes, but you should really try plucking your eyebrows. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid of tweezers. Thank you. See, all of the Glow Up Gals videos follow the same pattern. First, we fix the hair. For the hair, there should be no frizziness. It's usually long and straight. And the only color change we're doing is going to be like adding highlights. It's not going to be anything fun like purple. And it's all about brightening your face and looking more natural, which by the way, this was my God-given hair color. So it is natural. Also, the hair has to have volume, but it can't be too curly. And sometimes she does leave the curls in, but more often than not, it's straightened or given the same type of blowout. And the hair should always be longer to make it more feminine. Ah yes, the classic tale of short hair man, long hair woman. Very progressive thinking here. What really peeves me off is that in every video she will smooth out the hair so there is absolutely no frizz left, reinforcing the idea that frizziness is unattractive. At a glance, this doesn't really seem like anything, and I'm sure the creator doesn't realize what she's doing, but if you do think a little bit deeper about it, there really is a problem in enforcing the idea that frizziness is unattractive. For example, afro-textured hair is often deemed frizzy, which is then viewed as unprofessional and is often discriminated against in a professional setting. A 2023 Crown Workplace Research study found the following information. Black women's hair was 2.5 times more likely to be perceived as unprofessional. More than half of the Black women surveyed felt like they had to wear their hair straight in a job interview to be successful, and 2/3 reported that they had changed their hair for a job interview. 1/5 of the Black women surveyed between the ages of 25 and 34 had been sent home from work because of their hair. And 1/4 of the Black women surveyed believed that they were denied a job because of their hair. I have yet to see a video where the Glow Up Gals features a Black woman with an afro because most of Glow Up TikTok only uses Eurocentric beauty standards that only reinforce white supremacist culture, especially on this account. And let me just emphasize that white supremacist culture is something we all participate in unconsciously, myself included. I'm going to be using some more examples from this account just to help us see this issue more clearly, but I am not making the argument that this creator is consciously doing this for malicious reasons, so please don't send her any hate. Again, these are symptoms, not the cause. That being said, the Glow Up Gals formula always follows up the hair category with fixing the person's skin. In every video, she magically erases the woman's acne, usually saying something ridiculous like, get on Accutane, or visit a dermatologist, as if that's just like an easy thing to do in this economy. And if the woman in the video has a cute button nose, she'll be sure to point that out. She then tells the women to get rid of their under eye bags and dark spots and use contour to, quote, slim your face. The result is always an artificially airbrushed skin with a slimmer face and usually lighter, brighter skin. I was going to include examples of this in my video until I realized the women she was using in these examples I found never asked her for a public makeover. What the hell? The idea that lighter skin is more beautiful or valuable is disgusting, and though never stated directly in the Glow Up Gal's videos, it's certainly shown. Believe it or not, Teen Vogue of all places published this article that I think sums up this phenomenon quite well. Skin tone has long had class connotations. In early Egyptian, Greek, and Roman societies, lighter skin was associated with belonging to a higher class because, quote, a woman with fair skin clearly led a very different life to that of the bronze laborer, Tungate writes. But colonialism took this concept and applied it across races. It was the same ideology during slavery in the United States, Adawe says. Those with darker skin were working in the fields outside, and those with lighter skin were favored, they worked in the homes. Those with lighter skin were considered beautiful, and that is still ongoing within culture and within groups. She says that even when the colonizers left the US, even when slavery was abolished, the standard remained. The colonizers left, but they left a legacy, the legacy of whiteness. It's an ongoing colonization of the mindset. Perpetuating the idea that lighter skin is more desirable is white supremacy, full stop. The Glow Up Gals is reinforcing this upon hundreds of thousands of impressionable viewers, and she probably doesn't even realize that she's doing it. If you're white and you're not constantly unlearning the effects of white supremacy and colonization, you might not always be able to spot this easily, even though it seems obvious in hindsight. She also always says that you should use contour to, quote, slim your face, which is reinforcing the idea that being thinner is the ideal. Now this peeves me the hell off because we're certainly seeing a resurgence of celebrities in pop culture glorifying being skinny in an extremely blatant way, particularly with Ozempic. Some may argue that being thick was trendy for a while, but it always had to be the right kind of thick. You had to have a fat ass but a small waist, big titties but not too much of a belly, so on and so forth. We never really escaped the clutches of fatphobia. Diet culture never went anywhere. In fact, it's so out in the open now that celebrities are championing Ozempic publicly like it's the goddamn holy grail. Kelly Osbourne, I'm looking at you.
I think it's amazing and I think it's great for them. There are a million ways to lose weight. Why not do it through something that isn't as boring as working out? People hate on it because they want to do it. And the people who hate on the most, the people who are secretly doing it or pissed off that they can't afford it.
What the hell?
And guess what? Fatphobia is also a form of white supremacy. Don't yell at me and don't click away. Fatphobia is an extremely divisive topic. It's easier to say racism is bad because obviously race is not something you can control, but saying fatphobia is bad makes people uncomfortable because from our media and even the medical industry, we as a society still believe that our weight is fully in our control. This fails to consider people with genetic metabolic diseases, people living in food deserts, people who have to work multiple jobs and don't have time to hit the gym, etc. I was very underweight growing up. Even if I tried to gain weight, I couldn't. And I always felt insecure about this, and people would comfort me by saying, it's okay, that's not in your control, you're just naturally skinny. So why can't people be naturally heavy too? And why is there anything wrong with that? You always see the argument that being big is bad because it's unhealthy, but that is not always true. In fact, the BMI scale that doctors still use to this day has proven to be flawed and a poor measure for determining how healthy someone actually is. And if you don't believe me, a random person on the internet, I get it, but take it up with Harvard Medical, bitches. According to an October 24th article in the Montreal Gazette, criticism is growing that BMI, a formula that uses height and weight to measure body fat, is, quote, a flawed, crude, archaic, and overrated proxy for health. Those opposed to its continued use argue that it was developed based on white males and has little validity for other racial and ethnic groups, and that it's sometimes used to deny people joint replacements and other surgeries. Experts have also pointed out that BMI fails to take into account factors such as how much fat versus muscle a patient has, the distribution of fat in the body, and their metabolic health. Austin and co-author Tracy Richmond of Harvard Medical noted that, in the many instances in which BMI is assessed in medical settings, the information is not pertinent to medical decision-making and often not even used. Thus, BMI assessments may be causing risk, example, loss of trust, delayed care, while providing minimal to no benefit. This raises a reasonable question. What purpose is served by continued collection of these data, even as the very practice of BMI assessment itself negatively affects healthcare access and quality of care? So now that we know BMI is kind of bullshit, how do we know that fatphobia is rooted in racism? Sabrina Strings argues this in her book, Fearing the Black Body, with ample evidence to back up her claims. To give a short summary, I'm going to read some quotes from strings during an NPR interview that I find explains this phenomenon pretty well. During the Renaissance, full-figured women were viewed as desirable, but things started to shift during the slave trade in the 18th century. This is primarily when people started to classify different traits to different races. French philosophers began to observe African colonies and argued the following. You know what? When we're in the colonies, we're noticing that Africans are sensuous. They love sex and they love food. And for this reason, they tend to be too fat. Europeans, we have rational self-control. This is what makes us the premier race of the world. So in terms of body size, we should be slender and watch what we eat. Though it's not quite as intentional as that. Effectively, what they determined was that, we wanted to be able to have a mechanism for ensuring that we can recognize who was a slave and who was free. And it was easy in the beginning of the slave trade, as it was simply skin color. But as you might imagine, after 200 years of living in close proximity, skin color really no longer works as a mechanism, right? Because now we have all these people who are what we would consider today to be biracial. And so what they did was they decided to articulate new aspects of racial identity. And so eating and body size became two of the characteristics that were being used to suggest that these are people who do not deserve freedom. I did a lot of research about kind of the reception of this book on the internet, and I believe that people often misunderstand string, so I just want to make it clear that she is not saying that black people are naturally bigger than Europeans. She's saying that racist philosophers use completely arbitrary characteristics to separate the races. Like, there are plenty of examples of bigger Europeans, but these guys just focus on what evidence proved their batshit theories and ignored what evidence didn't. Then they put white people on top of a hierarchy that was based on their shit pseudoscience. And if you think it's a stretch to think that we would still be applying these principles today, let me remind you that those same French philosophers were the ones who pioneered the 3 branches of our government, which is clearly working so well. Fatphobia is such a divisive topic because for some reason when it comes to being fat, suddenly people in comment sections care about other people's health. You can't determine someone's health just by looking at them, so perpetuating the idea that being bigger is always unhealthy and unattractive is just another example of white supremacist culture at work, and this literally stifles medical progress. Look, I'm not saying that these TikTok accounts are consciously spreading white supremacy because they're evil Nazis. Again, I really don't think they know how much harm they're actually doing. We often think of white supremacy as one phenomenon only, which is white people who are being deliberately racist or think they are the superior race, but it's actually an entire culture that perpetuates the idea that there is only one right way of being or doing something. So many of these beauty standards have become normalized to the point where we don't think twice about them, but I am saying that we need to aggressively widen our perception of what is beautiful, myself included, and constantly be on the lookout for the subtle ways that white supremacy seeps into our thinking. I do want to reiterate that Glow Up Gals has been proven to take videos of young women who did not ask her for beauty advice, and then caption their video on her account something like, "How can I be prettier? Be brutally honest," making her audience believe that these women asked for advice in the first place. And there are plenty of people in her comment section of these videos that are practically begging for a makeover, so I can't imagine the motive behind taking someone's video who didn't consent other than stirring up controversy for more views and thus more money. And the Glow Up Gals isn't doing anything original here, as people have been asking every corner of the internet for beauty advice since its inception. There are dozens of subreddits dedicated to rating people, and women are not the only victims. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about the Rate Me subreddits and Looksmaxxing, because I believe it's relevant. There's r/rate me, r/accurately rate me, r/true rate me, r/face ratings, so on and so forth. And these subreddits aren't just reserved for women, as many men use these to try and get advice. The one that really strikes me as clinically insane is r/true rate me, which is self-described as objective ratings and pragmatic guidance. Just to put into perspective how ridiculous this is, I'm gonna read you the about section of this subreddit. Purpose of the sub is to provide facial ratings of both men and women based on objective factors, such as harmony, sexual dimorphism, symmetry, and qualities of their features. This means analyzing/evaluating a person's attractiveness without regard for one's own feelings. This is not a subjective rating sub. So if you're a normal, well-adjusted person, you probably don't know what sexual dimorphism means, so let me explain. In short, it's defined as, quote, the systematic differences in form between individuals of different sex in the same species. And it's often used in referencing to study like animals and birds, not people. First of all, beauty is absolutely subjective to a degree. This has been proven multiple times over, and it doesn't make sense to use sexual dimorphism to determine how attractive someone is, given the multitude of different sexual preferences present in humans. Like, you're really trying to argue that women don't love men who look like other women? I am not buying it. Explain to me famous twink Timothée Chalamet, Or the skater kid with long hair and pretty eyelashes that everyone loves. Explain that, Reddit. Second of all, this subreddit provides guides with a 10-point scale equipped with metrics and picture examples, which is giving serial killer levels of insanity. And just like in the TikTok makeovers, the metrics for defining attractiveness always coincide with Eurocentric features. Like for both men and women, it directly says big noses are unattractive and catalogs excess buccal fat as something undesirable. The scale being used here directly centers Eurocentric features as the pinnacle of beauty, and these Redditors are not even trying to hide their racism. Through many studies, we know how detrimental these standards are to the self-esteem of people of color and even white people. I found this essay which sums it up nicely. Kenneth and Mamie Clark published one of the earliest studies on the effects of skin color and self-perception among Black children. This study, now referred to as the doll test, and made famous by the landmark case of Brown v. Board of Education, illustrated how Black children were negatively affected by European standards of beauty. The European beauty standard is the notion that the more closely associated a person is with European features, the more attractive he or she is considered. These standards deem attributes that are the most closely related to whiteness, such as lighter skin, straight hair, a thin nose and lips, and light-colored eyes, as beautiful. In 2005, 58 years after the initial study, Kiri Davis, a 16-year-old student, recreated the experiment in a video documentary. Her findings suggest that the negative effects of these racialized standards of beauty are still pervasive today. And it seems like Rate Me subreddits coincide with something even more sinister, as the whole concept of Looksmaxxing emerged into popularity this year, but it's important to note that this concept has been around for decades, and the pressure to appear more masculine is unfortunately nothing new for men. I've actually seen a number of YouTubers comment on this trend in a way where they're kind of poking fun or laughing at how ridiculous this seems, and call me a boring weenie, but I don't think it's funny at all. I actually think it's really sad that our young men and women are consuming this bullshit. It makes me really, really worried for my younger cousins, and I know you guys have young family too, and it's just not fun to think that their impressionable minds are seeing all this shit. Oh, and remember when I said that accounts like GlowUpGals aren't consciously spreading white supremacist beauty standards? Well, given the fact that Looksmaxxing emerged from incel subreddits, it's safe to assume that the creators of this term knew exactly what they were doing in spreading racist pseudoscience. Here's this article that sums it up well. Mewing, on the other hand, is the idea that your facial structure can be improved via tongue posture. Looksmaxxing is a kind of umbrella term for all endeavors to improve a man's physical appearance, whether it be surgery or steroids. And yes, that whiff you detected when the word Chad popped up is correct. All three of these phenomena do indeed have links to incels. Chad facing is, of course, born out of the term Chad face, which stems from the notion of a Chad, the sexually active, genetically superior man, or alpha males, that incel subcultures spend their time lamenting. Paragons of Chad face are models like David Gandy and Jordan Barrett. I don't know this man. I do not know those men. Though Chad facing has since made its way out of the manosphere, becoming a TikTok trend where young people try to do their best recreation of a Chad or Giga Chad, it's a whole branch of terminology that has its roots in incel, red pill, and black pill communities, who all have a warped perception of the world around them. For Rukiat Ashawe of internet culture specialist The Digital Fairy, something like Chad facing is particularly insidious because of its way it rehashes pseudoscientific, racist ideas such as phrenology. Phrenology was a popular theory during the 1800s, the time period when people used communal sticks to wipe their asses. Anyways, this is where physicians allege that the bumps on someone's skull could determine certain mental traits. This was used to determine that Europeans were superior by arbitrarily ranking the skulls of different races beneath them. Looksmaxxing aims to change the shape of your skull, particularly the jawline with mewing, and pushing and pulling certain parts of your face to alter the shape into more Eurocentric features. There's even white maxing, which involves using creams to lighten your skin, because incels are not even trying to hide the fact that they're upholding racist ideology. Some people argue that Looksmaxxing isn't all negative, as it encourages good dental hygiene and skincare, but I think this is a moot point considering how extreme things are taken in the other direction. There are even a couple disturbing instances of people doing something called bone smashing, which is basically taking a hammer or something solid and hitting your cheekbones or jawline with it repeatedly. And it's unclear whether this started as a joke or an actual tactic used by Looksmaxxers, but regardless, if some young people have started adopting this as an everyday practice, they might not realize that this is a form of self-harm until it becomes a habit, and that really worries me. Not to mention, Looksmaxxing involves hyper-focusing on your facial features, and if you spend all day checking yourself in the mirror to see if mewing has resulted in any changes, this can develop into a bad habit as well. Personally, I think this could develop into body dysmorphia, and from personal experience, that shit is no fun. If you spend so much of your time observing your features critically and thinking about all the changes you would make to look better, you're gonna lose any sense of self and confidence that you might have already had. Looksmaxxing determines attractiveness on a scale of 1 to 8 or 1 to 10 depending on where you're looking. Some Looksmaxxing forums even use the same scale from r/TrueRateMe, considering these are all incel communities that intersect. But one thing is common amongst all the scales, and that is there are never any examples for the top tier because nobody meets that standard. These forums literally have young men and women striving for something that they admit is literally unachievable. Capitalism and white supremacy make us obsessed with having someone beneath us, giving us the false idea that if we somehow have more money than someone, be better at a skill than someone, or somehow be more attractive than someone, then we'll finally be happier or better off. This extremely harmful aspect of white supremacist culture is a need for perfection, particularly in a professional sense, but I believe with the rise of social media use, this is seeping into the way we present ourselves both online and in person. We must have the perfect skin with no acne or wrinkles, the perfect hair color for enhancing our features, the perfect jawline for mewing and mouth exercises, all of this perfection to let other people know that we are worth desiring. You may not even realize you're striving for perfection, but as you make one change thinking, oh, I could just be better if I lost 10 pounds, or I'd be so much prettier if I had a smaller nose, you will always be left with wanting more, finding another feature to critique rather than being content with who you already are. In researching for this video, I found a pretty helpful book called We'll All Be Free: How a Culture of White Supremacy Devalues Us and How We Can Reclaim Our True Worth. And there's one quote that really encapsulates this phenomenon. Whiteness has told us that there is only one right way to be successful in our society, and it looks and sounds like a white, able-bodied, cisgender male who graduated from an Ivy League school. The driving force behind our society, whiteness, says, if you don't fit my standards, there is no room for you here. If you're already white, then whiteness is your ticket to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness our society promises. As long as you strive for perfection, you're good to go. What no one will tell you, however, is that perfect whiteness is impossible to achieve. The standards have continued to rise throughout the generations and have left every single one of us panting in exhaustion from the chase. Most white people want to be allies so badly, but we simply don't want to do the work of decolonizing our own minds. We're obsessed with being the best version of ourselves, but until we've spent quite some time unlearning white supremacism, what's inevitably going to happen is that the best version of ourselves will be an unrealistic standard impossible to achieve under the perfectionism that white supremacy demands of us. The fact of the matter is this: beauty standards change. It's up to our generation to broaden the perspective of what is beautiful, and nothing will improve if we don't look inward and reflect on why exactly we don't like our belly fat, or big noses, or frizzy hair, and I promise you it's not because these features are inherently less beautiful, it's because of centuries-old, racist, unachievable standards that we've learned from the media. The good news is, despite what incel communities may have led you to believe, what's learned can always be unlearned. A makeover channel that profits off the insecurity of young women has no incentive to actually help you. A Looksmaxxing forum with insanely bigoted origins also has no incentive to actually help you. Basically, if you're Googling, what can I do to look better, you're not going to find anything that'll actually help you, only grifters looking to sell you something under the false pretense that you can radically change how you look. And I know, it's easy to say, just love the way you look. But as we just talked about, these beauty standards got hands. Centuries old, really racist, and really stinky hands. It's almost impossible to not fall victim to these at some point in your life, but the more you learn, or I guess unlearn, the more natural it'll feel to go easier on yourself. I'm 25 and I only recently got the confidence to actually film YouTube videos, even though it's something I've really wanted to do since I was a kid. I had such a hard time looking at my face or worrying about what others would say about my face that it's literally prevented me from doing something that makes me happy. It got so bad, I stopped being able to find anything I liked about myself at all, not just when it comes to appearance, but my personality as well. Like, I thought I was so annoying and ugly that nobody could ever enjoy spending actual time with me, which caused me to isolate myself, and guess what? People missed me. And they told me they missed me, but I couldn't believe them. I still struggle with this now, but it's something I'm working on, and my main goal every day is to just be kinder and not believe the inner critic inside my head. The more I learn about the exterior factors that make me feel like shit, such as capitalism and white supremacy, the more I feel empowered to love myself. Like, if I can't love myself purely for myself yet, that's okay, but I can at least work on loving myself to stick it to the man, because fuck that guy. Side note, I think it's hilarious that these corporations are worried about us not having children after decades of making us feel like shit about ourselves, to the point where we hate ourselves so much, why the fuck would we ever want children that are little versions of us? But also, I guess that never stopped our parents. If you're interested in reading more about some of the things that I talked about in this video, I have a whole Google Doc of some really helpful resources and book recommendations in the description, but I'll also be making plenty more videos like this in the future. Gooby says thank you for watching, and if you're feeling insecure, please don't post a picture on r/trueratememe because it will not help. Okay, thanks, bye.